So many times, we think, I can look back even in my life and say, why did I have to go through this? And why was my life so hard? Um, I think many young people may be asking the same thing. But looking back today and from now, I can see how God is using those situations that were difficult for me and hard for me. He's using it not for me, but for others, to encourage somebody else, to let somebody else know that God is real. I can see how God protected me. I can see how God covered me. Did I go through some bad situations that at times I didn't understand? Yeah. But I can still see the goodness of the Lord in my life. I can still see the hand of God over my life, because it could have been worse than what it was. But even going through, God was still with me. I can see God, providing for me. I can see, how God, you know, covered me, uh, and how he used people, to bless me. I told you about Mr. and Mrs. Carter. I told you about Mrs. Taylor. I told you about Uncle Martin. Those people are gone, and they would never know how they blessed my life. They would never be able to see the person that I have become, who it was they were really feeding, who it was they were really housing, who they were really, standing up for. They stood up for me. They protected me, and they fed me. And I will ever be grateful. And I'll ever thank God for being there with me, for taking care of me, for looking after me. And it just makes me see that God's word is true. God is real, and I see him in my life. And sometimes, we look at our lives and we compare our lives to other people, but we don't know what God is preparing us for. I never thought God would prepare me to be speaking to other people, and the pain that I had to endure. He would use it to encourage someone. He would use it, to bring glory to his name. And I just, want to encourage the young people, just trust God. I said no, not knowing, where I would get my school supplies from, not knowing, where I would eat sometimes, not knowing, it's getting bad in this house and I need a way of escape. God made a way of escape for me. He provided for me. When I tell you about Uncle Martin, he used to come through, and every time I needed school supplies. I remember one time, he came through and I think I was crying. And that's how it all began. I was crying on the porch because I didn't know how I was going to get my school supplies. And he felt sorry for me. And he took me to get my school supplies. And every time the teacher would give us, a school supply list, he would be there. And I found out later he was married to a teacher. And that's how he knew, when to come through. Every time I needed school supplies, he was there. And he would take me. He didn't take my sisters, but he took me. And he took me to get my school supplies. Sometimes when I didn't have a way to work, Mr. Carter would, take me to work. And he started taking me to work, and he would pick me up from work. And that's how I got to work. the neighbors came together, and we are supposed to be our brother's keeper. We are supposed to look after, the kids. But we've gotten so busy in our lives today that everybody's trying to make a dollar and nobody's looking after the kids. But back then, these grown people, they looked after me and they took care of me. But like I said, I'll never be able to say thank you to them because they're no longer here. But I can show my appreciation by looking after somebody else's kid like somebody looked after me. We don't all have to be selfish. We can look after somebody else's kids. They don't have to be our kids. They're God's kids. And there are kids out here that are crying. There are kids out here that need a meal. There's kids out here that need clothes. There's kids out here that need school supplies. And when God blesses us, we can bless a kid. We can look after these kids, where these kids don't have to sell their bodies. These kids don't have to be touched in order to have a roof over their heads. I was listening to a video when these young people was being touched, about his prophet. And many of them couldn't leave because they didn't have anywhere else to go. And that's sad that they would have to stay in a place that's not safe, stay in a place that they're being touched on or, by a pedophile. They have to stay there because they don't have anywhere to go. These kids were talking about how they were hungry. That's sad. Where they have to, decide, okay, if I'm going to eat today, whether they're going to eat today, well, it's based off of somebody touching on them. Them giving their body. That's like prostitution. And our kids shouldn't have to sell their bodies. It's a wake-up call to us that we have to wake up and be about these kids.